driving too quickly, alcohol in the system, and hit the central reservation and car went into a big spin. How hard I hit my head is what actually saved my life.
You were told that you might not even walk again, let alone play football.
They told my parents to prepare for me not being able to live an independent life again, you know? To me, I was sitting in the hospital bed one day, not knowing how I got there, why I got there.
You ended up representing Team GB in the 2012 Paralympics, playing for the CP football team, which is for people with cerebral palsy and brain injuries.
It put the hunger back in me, and there was like, Alistair, the opportunities to go to a World Championships where you'd get an England cap. Lo and behold, playing against South Korea, scored on my England debut.
Hello, thank you for tuning in to the Football and Feelings podcast. A great episode here with Alistair Patrick-Heselton. I was so happy to speak to Alistair. He came through the ranks at Wycombe Wanderers before getting snapped up by QPR. Later on in his career, he was involved in an awful car accident which led to his best friend being killed in the accident, and he was in a coma himself for 2 months with a brain injury. He didn't think he would be able to walk again. He was told he wouldn't be able to walk again, let alone play football. Then years later, after really focusing on his recovery, he ended up representing Team Great Britain in the 2012 Paralympics with the CP football team, which is for people with cerebral palsy and brain injuries, but the level is so high. And we spoke about his reluctance to going into that sort of football because he wanted to play at the level he did at before. But when he went to the training sessions, he realised that the level was much higher than he anticipated at first. From that point, he's ended up going into mentoring and public speaking to help motivate people around the country, work professionals, aspiring athletes, to get the best out of them that he can. Again, Alistair was a lovely man. I really enjoyed this chat, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy it too. Give us a review if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, or subscribe wherever you're listening. It would really help me grow the show again. But yeah, I'll leave it there. Enjoy the episode. Cheers. Okay, I'd like to start first of all by thanking our guest this week, Alistair Patrick-Heselton. Really thankful to having you on. I'm glad we can make this happen because I'm certain that our listeners are gonna benefit from hearing your story.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. How have you been keeping during lockdown? What's it been like for you? I've seen a lot of people picking up new skills and trying out hobbies that they probably wouldn't have done. But how's it been for you?
Yeah, I suppose I became a little bit of a painter decorator in that time as well, you know. Even done some landscape gardening. But I mean, honestly, lockdown, absolutely fine, because it does take me back in time to just after my injuries and things like that, when I was literally locked down anyway, you know. So actually, I quite enjoy my own company, and I've got a 6-year-old that keeps me on my toes at this time. So just enjoying all of the lockdown. I'm one of these people that says, never look a gift horse in the mouth, you know, and this has been imposed on us, like, you know, not through any of our own will, but all we can do is just roll with it. And it's one of the things that's uncontrollable for us, but we can control how we respond to it. And that's what I always try and do. That's
it. Yeah. You can only control what you put into things. You can't control the output. I love that. But have you learned anything about yourself during lockdown? Is your patience not as high as you thought it might have been? And how's that been?
No, I suppose that you just become far more, open to scrutinizing things, you know, because you're obviously, if you're a perfectionist or you've got VDI on things, then you'll be having more time just to like get consumed in your own thought, you know. But I do try and just keep my mind active, keep moving, body moving as well, like, you know, as much as possible. But at the same time, I do actually enjoy the rest and the relaxation, you know. So I just try and keep things balanced as much as I can.
Mm-hmm. That sounds great. It sounds like you found the positives in that situation.
Yeah.
There's an awful lot I wanted to speak to you about today. Maybe I think it's best probably to start with your career in football before you had your accident, which we'll come on to. You played for Wycombe Wanderers as a youth player before getting snapped up by QPR.
Yeah, this is it.
When you reflect on that sort of time period, what stands out for you in that era of your life? Or who was Alistair at that point?
Yeah, do you know, because I remember I've been an August birthday, I was always the sort of youngest in my school year and things like that. And I was just like, a very young, focused boy that just wanted to be a footballer. For me, that was what it was. And it was always a little bit difficult because I had parents that were both academics, and sent us all, me and my siblings, to a private school. So we all had a private education, and they'd have wanted me to go into the family law firm afterwards, so I was always fighting that battle. But football was just my love and something I just wanted to do so much, and had a great time at Wycombe Wanderers, as a young schoolboy there. And QPR came in, and for me, that was, it had to happen because bigger side, closer to where you live, and at the time they still had all the bells and whistles with QPR as well. So it was just real. I was just so enthusiastic for it and couldn't wait for it to happen, and it did. And my initial start there was fantastic as well, scoring goals almost at will in my first season there. And I was just enjoying football, enjoying life at the time, which was great.
Do you remember your first day arriving at QPR?
Do you know what I do? Because I had a lot of friends there that played for me, played with me in the borough side, the county side, and there's already the introduction. Boys, I'm joining you this year. It's going to be good. We're already thinking about who's going to be playing where. Then I always remember turning up, and I turned up back for a pre-season, and this was leaving Wycombe Wanderers as a schoolboy, but then you're going into that YTS scholarship environment straight in at QPR, and everyone seemed bigger than me. They'd all got their maturity growth spurts before me, and got there, and day one it was just pre-season, and there's me thinking, I'm going to be loving pre-season. This is first one, and this is turning into Mo Farah. Everyone's just we're just having our legs run off us. But no, it was great. And then our first game we had the pre-season friendly was against Barnet. Funny enough, it was an under-19 game, and I had joined there as a young under-17 and under-19 game. It's always tricky when you don't start. You're not in the first 11 that goes out on the pitch, and you're thinking, hang on, what does this mean for you? And then we were playing 3/3 at the time. I remember it. Came on in the second third, and who scores a header for a 1-0 win? And it was me. So I think that was the sort of platform, and when you feel some things are just meant to be, it just couldn't have gone any better. And that's how it started, and that was almost the introduction. I remember first game of the season was against Charlton, scored the second in a 2-1 win that day as well. So it was just good times, and a very exciting thing,
Of course, yeah. Were you confident in this route into football then? Was this was going to be your life going forward? Because I know you made the leap in and out of professional football after that due to some injuries that you had. And you ended up committing some of your time to studying, right? But how did you manage that sort of that fluctuation there?
Well, for me, it's the funniest thing. It's because your dreams to be a footballer, and for me, I was going to be a footballer no matter what. And even when I was there as a professional, you sometimes lose sight of I'm here, let me enjoy it. You're just still on that treadmill, because football's certainly a life. It's a never end. It's relentless. Once you're in it, because it's a journey that is never ending. You're always striving, even if you're playing in the Premiership, you're then striving to try and win a Prem. You win a Prem, well, we want to try and win something Europe. We win something Europe, but on the end of the season, it's World Cup. I've got to try and make it for the national side. And it's a constant treadmill, and I was very much on that. And it's very hard at times to actually sit back and take stock of what you've done, what you've achieved, and just be happy and have your sort of downtime, because as soon as one season ends, okay, you might actually have a week off, but a lot of the guys were still trying to stay fit ahead of pre-season, and it's exhausting sort of.
What was the transition like away from QPR then? Was that something that you welcomed with open arms, or was it quite a difficult thing to accept at the time?
For me, for all of us at the time, because for a lot of us moving away from QPR, that was imposed on us again. The club went into administration when the first team got relegation from Div 1 into Div 2, lost so much money, and basically administrators were telling us that we're not getting new contracts. And you think, hang on, surely it's a manager that tells you that, not an administrator, But then the club just couldn't afford to pay everyone, and a lot of us were very uncertain. But luckily for me, Ian Dowie, he had got the move up to Oldham Athletic, and got me straight up on loan there. I was under Tony Philliskirk, which for me was, wow, what a great manager to have playing under Tony, and both David Cross as well. He was the reserves manager, and playing there, wow, again, scoring on a debut, which was fantastic for their under 19s at the time, which was good, and playing in the Resis a lot, and so much fun. And I was very, very enthused to be there because it was almost out of my comfort zone. Left family behind in London, living up in Royton, up in Oldham, and living with a new family. And I was just thinking, okay, this is a whole new independence, time for me to grow, and I did, and I was really loving it there, and I wasn't looking back. And I was just, okay, well, I'm a footballer here now, still a footballer just somewhere else,
Yeah, comfort zone is a key phrase you use there. Is that a barrier that you were quite happy to break? Because a lot of people, that comfort zone that's so restricting, almost like it's very hard for them to get out of that. But eventually you ended up playing in like the Dutch first division.
Yeah.
So that's another new challenge. It sounds like you obviously, in hindsight, it sounds like you breezed into these challenges, but I'm sure at the time it wasn't quite as simple as that.
No, I think certainly that word comfort zone is very often, that's a word that we don't actually realise we're in our comfort zone, because that's when we're in autopilot. We just do things and we don't actually have to think about them. We don't leave them because why rock the boat? I don't want to go into uncertainty because I think this way is the best. And for me, going to Oldham, I didn't think at the time, oh, I've left my comfort zone, I have to grow. But subconsciously, I matured because I had to be more independent. I had to forge better friendships with people. And that was just a byproduct of moving away from home. It's almost like jumping in the swimming pool without armbands. I'm not the best swimmer, but if you tell me, listen, I've got to make it to shore, I'm going to get there, So, and it's just like that. So, and again, on the flip side, my time in Holland, that wasn't so good for me in terms of me as a person. I didn't really integrate because, one, didn't want to learn the language, didn't want to spend most of my time living out of a hotel for 4 or 5 months, because I didn't want to actually say, if I've got this property here, I'm bound to it. I was coming home regularly. I say home, well, your home's in Holland. It should have been in Holland. However, my home was very much in England, and that's just, for me, I've got so many friends, not just in football, but in other walks of life, that have moved to relocate in America and all around the world. And I so often say to them, do you know what? I couldn't do that life. I tried it going to Holland. It's just not for me. I just love it here for whatever reason.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I think quite often you hear about those glory stories of English players moving abroad and it just working out, and then all the pundits are saying, I don't understand why more English players aren't doing that. But it is so difficult for a lot of people. So that's quite interesting to hear, actually, how you were being comfortable in England, but did you just feel like you needed that comfort to play your best football, maybe?
Yeah, because at the same time, after being out in Holland, I was like, nah, this is me. The agent then said, Alistair, well, why don't you try it was FC Geel in Belgium. So, and I was born in Belgium, funnily enough, and you arrive there, and I'm just there, and the whole pace of the country, the place almost felt completely isolated, and that's something that it scared me, to be perfectly honest, because you can stand in the middle of a street, like where you're meant to live, you look up and down, you don't see anything for miles, and you're thinking, nah, this what happens if the dishwasher packs up or the washing machine goes, what am I going to do? so no, for me that was not so good. That really daunted me, and luckily for me at the time, it was when Nationwide had taken over the conference. So I came back and signed for Bishop Stortford, at the time playing in the Conference South, and again I actually just felt much happier doing that. And one thing my parents have always said to me, they said, I only play football if it's going to make you happy, because if you're doing something, why are you doing it? Is it just to earn money? But then you're sacrificing your happiness at the other end of it. What's it worth? And so for me, I was happy to just play semi-pro in England with Bishop Stortford whilst working as a quantity surveyor in the West End.
And Bishop Stortford, you're close to Stansted if you ever wanted to make the trip to Holland as well.
That's what I was always flying from Stansted, funnily enough. So.
I've in my time doing this podcast, I've spoken to several players, and one thing that I really admired about them is that some of them have had the ability and the opportunity to play in a professional division, whether that is abroad or even in England. But some of them have made that conscious decision not to do that, just because, like you said, they're not happy playing at that level. Sometimes they're not enjoying their football. It feels like it's taken the fun out of it. It turns it into more of a job. So that's something that is really nice to hear you say, and something that I imagine from a fan's perspective, you know what football fans are like. They're a bit stubborn. I imagine it's they're probably thinking, "Nah, don't do that. Go play pro." But it's really nice to see that you adjusted to that quite well.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things people don't always understand. They think, "Oh, why is this football money and they get paid enough?" And listen, money isn't everything, okay? Because I always remember it'd be on Christmas days where we would have to be in crack of dawn, and when you're young and you're in on Christmas Day, you're cleaning someone else's boots and it's freezing cold. You're talking to me like, "Do you know what, mate? What are we doing here?" I'll be like, "Do you know what? We could just do a nice little office job. You get a company mobile phone, company car, and just wear a suit and walk around." And so you have those jokes, but then it's only when you look back on it, you think, no, that football life that we had wouldn't change it for anything, you know? But sometimes you need that older head put on the younger shoulders. But 100%, I'd put my happiness above football and above anything else. So the day, it stops making you happy, as David Bentley, great ex-Arsenal player, did. He just got up one day, and I used to play against him so much. And when I heard him say that, you think, well, wow, he was flying high at Arsenal, and it was always tipped to be the next big thing. And when that comes from him, you think, well, how many more are like that? How many is he representing? Because he was a top player.
Yeah. At what point then in your career did you decide to broaden your horizon slightly and start studying in quantity surveying? At what point did you make that decision?
That was almost right from the very beginning. Like I said, having academic parents and signing with QPR, so we had access to a private education. We all would go to Hammersmith and West London College, and we get private tuition 1 day a week as well. And as part of your academy, you'd have to choose A-levels. Obviously, everyone would do sports science. My parents, they weren't having that. I had to do some proper stuff, so I did a GMVQ in business studies and an AS level in politics at the time, and came away with those. And my dad says, "Alistair, do you know what? In life, the way things go, if you plan for something, you're probably never going to need it. So sod's law will mean, you get this education, you'll never need it, and that's a good thing. However, if you do need it, then it's there for you." And it was only after my knee injury, like up at Oldham Athletic and everything else, new management shift in QPR, talk with the administrators and everything else, I just thought, well, wow, do you know what? I've got two options. I can just go on this treadmill that every other young footballer at this sort of time is going to be doing, which is they're trying to go off to trials at every other club, and then you become a number. Or I can actually go and do a lot more, and just be out there and be happy in what I do. So I thought, let me just go for that. And I did quantity surveying. That was partly my mum's fault. She just told me to go to the local connections office and said, just do some research on some stuff. And okay, just saw an opportunity and I took it. And that was that.
Great stuff. I've heard. I was watching actually Last Chance U on Netflix last night. It's an American football, college sports documentary, and a few of the lads there were saying they don't have a plan B and they don't want to have a plan B apart from making it in the NFL. And I mean, I was watching that thinking, part of me is thinking, great that they're so committed to getting that plan A, but I mean, the statistics don't lie. Not every player makes it. It's so important to have that plan B. And I'm sure from your perspective, you're glad that you always had that there, almost like a safety barrier to fall back on.
Yeah, no, definitely. Because you sometimes think, how conducive is it to have a plan B when you're actually trying to be tunnel vision to get my goal, So, and I think it's the way it's sometimes delivered, because having worked with the Dame Kelly Holmes Trust, I mentor a lot of young footballers on my future today, and this a lot of the time it's when they're coming up to crunch time with what decisions are they going to make, and we try and show them that they have got transferable skills. So we're not saying, oh yeah, you have to have this plan B. What we're saying is your plan A can actually help you going somewhere else if you need to, you know. So I was just trying to show them that they've got that. And it's funny because it was only whilst following a plan B, I then had the opportunity to go and play in Holland and, put that on hold again to take up plan A, and then plan A there in Holland, not for me. So I went back to plan B again, so it's, nothing is set in stone, we just have to be as adaptable as we can, even this time shows us right now.
Yeah, adaptability is definitely key. Absolutely. Before we touch on the mentoring work that you're doing now, I do want to touch on the accident that you were involved in. I don't want to do this an injustice, really. Would you mind sort of explaining what happened? I want to make sure I don't get any of the details wrong.
Yeah, well, for me it was a game changer because my best friend Simon Patterson, the late Simon Patterson, ex-Watford, Wycombe Wanderers also, had a tragic car crash back in September the 10th, 2006 now, and he was driving too quickly, alcohol in the system, and hit the central reservation and car went into a big spin at very high speed. And there's 3 of us in the car as well, another good friend of ours, Faisal, and 3 of us were thrown from the car. Don't know if I landed on my head first of all, however, my head took significant trauma. So I had a compound depressed fracture skull. But it was the actual, how hard I hit my head is what actually saved my life, because I cracked my head right open, and while I was having brain hemorrhages, because head's open, it let all the blood out, so it meant that no pressure built up, and that's what allowed them to get me to hospital with enough oxygen to the brain on time. And I think also I have to say the ambulance service deserve a massive shout out, because their response time was just so awesome in getting to me that quickly. And also, you never know who's listening to these things, but the actual accident was reported by a security guard that was watching the the boatway cameras and things like that. It was him that reported it at the time, because I don't know if there was any cars around, but big thanks to him for seeing that and logging that so quickly. So another unsung hero in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you came out of that accident. You were in a coma for 2 months. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, just over that. Yeah.
Okay. So and you were told that you might not even walk again, let alone play football.
Yeah. See, this is what the funniest thing is. Being in that coma, you're just oblivious to it. It's your family. They're the ones that are receiving all the things. They're going through the real hard times, as I call it, and right down to my younger brother. One of my younger brothers, he was taking it upon himself to actually try and come up with a language that we would be able to use for me, because they were told I might not be able to talk again, wouldn't be able to communicate. They said walking was going to be a struggle. They told my parents to prepare for me not being able to live an independent life again, So, that's what my family were doing. And it was a real, touch and go time for them, And I do remember waking and then, being told, Alistair, walking's going to be very difficult, if at all you can. Obviously, I never thought like that, because I always used to remember my dad, he used to, he'd put my bed control on the end of the bed by my feet, and he'd always be telling me, to try and kick it. At the time, he was telling me that, not knowing if I can hear him or, understand what he's saying. But then it got to a stage when I was becoming a bit more lucid, where I would just try and flick at it. So you knew I had some movement in my legs, but how coordinated it was going to be, we'd have to just wait and see, And then I remember putting weight on your legs the first time, and you feeling like Bambi on ice, the first time, and you're wobbling away. And that for me was a good thing, because it just meant to me, I couldn't do it yet. That's like so many things in life, everything we do for the first time, can't always do it yet, So I was just prepared for the challenge.
Yeah, so I'm sure the road to better health was long and torturous for you, but did you eventually come to terms with the accident? Because understandably, a lot of people might not have. They would have just been so frustrated, and that could have actually hindered their progress in reaching a better health.
Yeah, no, that's a great question and a great way to put it, because in terms of coming to terms with it, I'd say, yes, I have learned to cope. Okay, and because I even still to this day think of my best friend, and I might be doing something now and be like, oh, me and Simon, we'd have done this or we'd have laughed at that, that sort of stuff. So it's something that I don't think will ever leave me, or will ever leave anyone, but you do learn how to manage it and come to terms with it. I think my doctor had actually put into great perspective for me quite early on as I was coming around, and he was, Alistair, you've got about 5 years. When I just started walking, he was like, Alistair, you've got about 5 years where you'll keep getting better for about 5 years, but then after that, that's roughly where you're going to just see yourself stay. And that scared me a bit, because I thought, well, wow, I've got 5 years to really, because if they're going to stop the time in 5 years, I have to be able to, do backflips or whatever, so, and that just led to me, just being even more relentless in trying to walk and talk. And talking for me was one of the things, because I had massive facial paralysis where the whole left side of my face had completely dropped, and I'd have to go and see my speech therapist. And that was probably the most demoralizing, when you couldn't even pout, you couldn't say your words properly. And it's only when I tried to make a phone call one day and the woman on the other end of the phone said, talk properly, I can't understand you. And that hit me a bit hard. And I thought, do you know what? I'm gonna have to, something's got to change. And I'm not about to have an argument with this woman over the phone about it, but I'll just have to try even harder in my speech therapy. That's what I did.
Yeah, that shows the work that you're willing to put in. There's obviously a natural level of determination there that you had before the accident and after the accident. You're also told that you had, is it retrograde amnesia?
Yeah.
That's something that I don't really understand, and again, I don't want to do it an injustice, but how did that affect your day to day? What did that mean?
That's something that I don't really understand myself. But basically, what it was from the day of the accident and about the year before it, I don't know anything. So when you think about my first thoughts, to me, I was sitting in a hospital bed one day, not knowing how I got there, why I got there. It wasn't even it was the middle of the night. So I don't remember anything the whole year before it. So I was always trying to piece together these things. But it's only when I can't recall things, someone would have to try and prompt me and say, oh, do you remember when that had happened? And then, maybe I do. But if you were to ask me, hey, what happened then? It's not happening. So I can't, the recall side of my brain has actually gone. But I might be able to recognize something where someone will say something. I'm like, oh yeah, now you say that, I get it. So it's, but on a day-to-day, I had goldfish memory. So I wouldn't have a clue what was going on. We could be having a conversation right now. Someone would ask me a question, and then I'll look at you and say, well, when did you get here? What's going on? And that was a real struggle for me, actually, because I always remember, even when I was let home, I was then missing so many, medical appointments, because my parents were trying to let me have some independence where they'd be like, no, you can take charge of your appointments. No, I should be somewhere else, and I'm just sitting at home, not knowing what I should be doing, not that focused. So I had to then end up writing more notes, Post-its were stuck all around my house and these kind of things, and put plans in place so I could hang on to things, store them.
Yeah. Is that something that did improve over time, or is that something that still affects you now?
No, memory now is so much better. But it's so funny how we say how the mind works and things like that, because even though the big bulk of my memory had actually gone, I was in hospital one day, and I thought my parents had given me a phone card, and I'd always been saying to them, listen, I want to come home. They're saying, nah, Alistair, you're in the best place for you right now. You're rigged up to all these machines. And I got a phone card. They said, if you ever need to call us, just give us a call. Picked up the phone. I thought, well, I'm not calling my parents. I'm calling my grandma. And I called my grandma because she's never said no to me before. So I was like, Grandma, you got to get me out of here. She's like, I'm sorry, I can't. So then she rang my parents and said, oh, Alistair just called me. He's a bit distressed. My first thing my parents said is, how does he remember your number? My dad's like, I don't even remember. So, and that was a funny thing. Coming home, when I got back home, went out. First thing, went to a cash point and put my PIN number straight in like that. And that's how do you remember that? And my memory on certain things were just completely random, where I could just, my mom's like, Alistair, how do you actually remember that? I didn't remember this, So the brain does funny things.
Yeah, that's unreal. Wow. Jumping forward a few years, you ended up representing Team GB in the 2012 Paralympics, playing for the CP football team, which is for people with cerebral palsy and brain injuries. How did that opportunity present itself? How did you get involved in that?
And again, when we say the word small world or things are meant to be, it just so happened there was a doctor, Richard Wheeler, who was the cerebral palsy England doctor. However, earlier on in his career, he had been the Watford club doctor, and he knew my friend Simon that played for Watford. And obviously at the time of Simon's death and everything, he knew that he'd been with an ex-QPR footballer. And he put two and two together thinking, because he knew of the brain injury, that, technically he would be able to play in this side. And he actually relayed that to the management and Jeff Davis, the performance director at the FA, who then reached out to me through the PFA. And I thought, at first I was like, no, guys, I've got a new life now. I don't play football anymore. I don't even know what it is, this disability football. They told me a bit more about it. I still couldn't identify with it because my whole recovery had been geared around not being called disabled or a Paralympian at all. I wanted to be the old Alistair again, and I researched a bit about it, went on the website, and it wasn't portrayed in the best disability footballers, because the poster of it was just an amputee playing football. And I thought, no, I can't identify with that because that's not me. So I think they've got the wrong man. I said, no, I don't want to do it. So then they kept on at me. Thought, well, they seem to be wanting to invest so much time in talking to me. At least the worst thing I can do is just turn away the opportunity. So let me go and see a bit what it's about. And I remember going to an England camp and playing. Now I was sort of trying to play very much on almost like muscle memory. Just remember what a footballer should do and these kind of things. Although at first I felt like a tennis player. I just did a quick sprint and I thought, hang on, where should I even be standing? Everything, my orientation didn't seem the way it was. I felt like a tennis player playing on a football pitch, But one thing that I didn't have on my side was I was actually, in terms of physical fitness, I've been in the gym a lot, so I'd really bulked out and I was in great shape, but just not fine-tuned for football, so to speak. But it put the hunger back in me, and there was Alistair, the opportunities to go to a World Championships where you would get an England cap and things like that. And I thought, oh, wow, this is a bit amazing. And then managed to get put with the Jaguar Academy of Sport as a rising star, which is 50 young athletes and get put on the program, and you receive mentoring from top stars. Myself, I was lucky enough to be mentored by Dame Kelly Holmes, Denise Lewis, Jessica Ennis-Hill, Sir Steve Braithwaite. So it was, and David Beckham. Wasn't going to drop him, but he was also in there.
You've got to drop him.
Yeah, so and I thought, well, wow, do you know what? This opportunity is great. Let me just, go to the World Champs, but just try and give it my very best. And lo and behold, playing against South Korea, scored on my England debut. And I thought, well, yeah, all of a sudden, memories come flooding back, the whole camaraderie as you score, everyone's jumping on you, everything's buzzing again. Yeah, you're feeling the heartbeat going. Yeah, this is good. How far could I go? That was it for me,
Yeah. What was the training regimes and pre-game preparations like for the CP teams? I presume it's very similar to your standard 11-a-side, but maybe slightly tailored in places.
It's very interesting you say that, because when I first got there, that's the one thing I realised is it wasn't. Now, and even at an elite level, it was a case of, it seemed as though too many special exceptions were given. No, we won't slide tackle in training because there's a high chance of it, or an increased chance of injuries in cerebral palsy. You don't have to train every day, or you have to manage your body a bit more. However, the philosophy I brought from the next professional was, no, guys, we train every day and we train as we play. So how can you not slide tackle in training, but you'd be expected to slide tackle in the match? Because you have to practice these things that you do. Otherwise, you'd never know how to do them. And I was really passionate about driving that into the side, and it did. And I think certainly the way I was looking after my body as well, it kind of made more of the players aspire to be like that as well. So they could go away from the England camp, train away as hard as they can, and come back, look at what I'm doing now and this and that. And that's if that's the one thing that I gave to the side, then I'm really glad it was that experience that I'd had, from professional football and mainstream football. And slowly England, the buzz, because it wasn't very well received or heard of within the country anyway, the disability and certainly the CP game. Over time, the popularity's increased, and like, you know, that it is the way now to be an elite level player. You do actually you're not just there because, like, you know, it's an afterthought. You're here because you're the best, and when you're the best, well, you don't want to be the best in England. You want to be the best in the world, like, you know. So that's why we train as hard as we can. It's more like that now because some of the training schedules we were given from the sports psychologists, our sports therapists, and everything else were, like, you know, 6 days a week, and we're really hammering away, which is all good stuff. The hardest thing was just that you have to do it in your own time, like, you know, a lot of those days, and your heart rate and everything gets logged and tracked back by them because we always log in all our sessions and everything, and they'll see who was hiding away. So you just have to be personally responsible.
Of course, yeah. Where was your headspace when you started playing again? Obviously, the journey that you've been on prior to that, you didn't think you would be playing football. You're managing to do it again. Are you full of confidence and motivation, or is it taking you quite a long time to find your rhythm again with the ball at your feet?
Oh, I was 100% motivated. Like, you know, once I saw opportunities live, I'm going all out. Otherwise, what's the point, you know? So training well as hard as I could, and luckily for me as well, I had a very supportive wife who at the time was making sure my meals were always prepared, because I had a business in car design for like footballers and things like that, where we doing that during the day and then have to make sure I get my session in and then come home whatever time, but my meals were prepared and things like that. So we were ships in the night for like at least 2 years. We hardly saw each other while I was on that cycle for London and everything, you know, and just gave it everything that I could.
Yeah, of course. You mentioned earlier that was your first experience of mentoring when you were given those like athletes to mentor you?
Yes, so I was mentored by, like I say, these great athletes, and it's only on reflection, well, no, I've been mentored by so many more before. However, I just never realised it at the time. You know, it's only when it was captioned like that, and having those athletes around, because I was still unsure about, am I going to really go in for this Paralympic football, or am I just better off doing what I'm doing as a family man and having my career elsewhere? But then when I was hearing from all of their experiences and all the things they had to do, and the real buzz was how hard they trained, because I thought, do you know what, I know what it's like to be there, and you're giving it everything, and then you see it in competition at the end of it. I thought, it really, really helped.
Yeah. So then eventually you've gone into mentoring yourself and public speaking as well. How did that opportunity come around?
And again, that was in part through Dame Kelly Holmes herself, because she'd been helping me so much, and she had said, Alistair, you know what, with your own journey and everything that you've experienced, you would be able to give back, and would you like to do it for my trust? And that's where I started off with their trust, and also with Sporting Champions, which was a Sport England initiative, and I was doing that, and I've really actually enjoyed doing it. The main thing was like being able to give back, and I could see that, like, you know, the smiles that you put on people's face, and like, you know, just the experiences that you share and the influence it has on them. And I thought, well, you know what, why am I working here and then stopping that to go and do this, and then going back, just going there to do that again? I thought, well, you know what, let me stop working there, and I'm just going to go full on into this mentoring and speaking, trying to make a change for people's lives. And that's what I've done, and that's where I am today. I love it.
Amazing. So you're working with a wide variety of people, from work professionals, aspiring athletes, and students as well. But have you found there's like common threads with through all these people that you're working with? Is there something that comes up quite often that maybe people either struggle with, or that you really need to try and instill into them?
Yeah, no, I know there are always these buzzwords, like, you know, I think resilience for a little while now has been a real buzzword. Sometimes I don't actually think it's resilience so much as what people need. I think people need to actually find that dream, because when you've got that, when you know there's something that you want, resilience doesn't come into it, because you're just getting what you want, and you're running through all these barriers, not even realizing you're breaking things down, because you're just getting what you want, you know. So I think it's always dream catching is what we need to actually focus on, having the dream, being able to actually know what you want, look outside of the bubble, you know. But when I saw that question about, like, you know, the theme, the biggest thing that surprised me is how regional, like, a lot of issues do tend to be regionalised, where you could actually tell, oh, actually that part of the country, oh, actually, they're very different to that part. Like, you're going through in your head, well, why are they so different? Because that trend is actually similar to that place over there. And even though they're two completely different places, they've got that same trend. And why is that? So, no, it's just very interesting. Like, again, the young people that I get to meet, and I've met and been influenced by people that I've met as well. It makes me very grateful for everything that I've experienced and done.
Has anything surprised you about working with these young people?
Yes, in that young people, they give themselves a hard time, because it's only when you let a young person speak and then you're hearing all the things that they're saying, you're thinking, hang on, you've got quite a story. Don't think you're any less. And sometimes I've been greeted by young people like, wow, Alistair, do you know what? I'm just a guy just from a normal school like you guys were, all it was, I just wanted to try that bit harder than everybody else. And it's the never say no attitude, And no, I'm always pleasantly surprised. I think that's the best thing to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when you are mentoring people or doing these speaking appearances, for you, is there always like one set goal, or is that a spectrum? Does that change depending on who you're speaking to and how they're bouncing off of you as well? Do you notice things that people probably that their ears pop up and you want to focus on that for the rest of the session? Or
yeah, I think if it's just speaking, I always need to get the brief, and I always just try and be completely open and honest, and I'll give people my story and what it meant to me and the experiences that I've had and how that may affect someone else going through not necessarily the same tough time, but a similar sort of tough time or a tough time. But then when I go putting on the workshops for various people, it's the team building stuff and resilient things. No, I just love that because within a day you can see someone go from being timid to being the life and soul of the group, which is so good to see. That for me is one of the reasons I just keep doing it.
Yeah. One of the episodes I've done here was speaking to a mentoring expert, Herman Stewart, who I've been connected to for a while. He found that in the other work that he's done, speaking to a lot of people on the other side of the pond in the States, he found that in the UK especially, we hate saying that we're good at stuff. We're like, if we're like the best in our field out of a group of people, we hate saying that. Whereas in America, it's polar opposite. If you want to get to the top, you have to let everyone know that you are the top dog. Is that something that you've found, that there's a bit of coyness, a bit of shyness around people noticing the ability that they have actually got?
Yeah, but and I don't mean to sound a bit rude when I say this, but it's the wrong people that tend to be like that. So it's the ones that are skilled and qualified that tend to not blow their own trumpet. However, there'll be someone with no qualification and no real sense of what they're actually doing, but they'll say they're the best thing since sliced bread, and I've never really understood that. And the biggest problem I find is we seem to be scared to challenge at times. And so why isn't that challenge? Because if they've got enough about them, they'll be able to counter the argument. But so often it's not like one of the things. Hope I don't offend you by this, but it's YouTubers at the moment annoy me because
I'm not a YouTuber. Don't you worry. I don't put myself in that category.
Thank you. You'll get someone that will sit on YouTube and they'll then just go off on one. They'll quote stats and things like that, not have any idea what it is they're actually talking about. However, it's then believed by people. Why would you? Because it looked professional, because they did it on YouTube and they had a room and their camera was on a tripod, and you're thinking, come on now. Let's not always just get sucked into the presentations. Let's look for content.
Yeah. And having met some of those people, that it's so strange when you see people that are so different when they're on camera. Like that's why I really struggle to buy into a lot of YouTubers and content creators, because I don't know, I can just see through the nonsense that they're chatting normally. Alistair, we've spoken about a lot of stuff in this episode. I always like to round off with 4 sort of quick fire-ish questions, which are sort of reflective. If you're ready for those, let's go.
Yeah.
What makes you happiest in life?
What makes me happiest in life right now is my family. Seeing the smile on my son's face and my wife and happy. Like, you know, that for me at the minute is, it makes me happy. What else do I need? Like, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm seeing my family at the weekend as well for my birthday, and don't need more than that.
Amazing. On the other end of the spectrum, what makes you sad?
What makes me sad? Well, do you know, the world at the moment, the way things are going, making me a little bit sad. Like, you know, because we very rarely seem to be pulling in the same direction. And by that, I mean, whether it's the government, are they pulling with their public, or are they just setting rules for us to follow? Like, you know, and it's a little bit tricky because like, you know, people are being exploited, and it's not great.
Yeah, quite right. How would you like to be remembered?
Do you know what? Just as a guy that always tried his best, and whatever it was, I tried my best. You know.
Mm-hmm. And finally, the last question of the day: what about yourself are you most proud of?
Being inducted in the National Football Museum Hall of Fame. That's when, if I like, you know, be a bit selfish, I'll say, that's one thing that I'm proud of. Mum, I made it.
That is top draw. What an accolade! Wow, I need to up my game.
And it was alongside same induction alongside Steven Gerrard as well, 2017. So that for me, and I'm a Liverpool fan, so yeah.
Amazing.
Over the moon with that.
I've never seen you both in the same room, so you know. No,
look for us in the same telephone box. That's where we just quickly get changed.
Alistair, it's been amazing having you on. Before we round this off, the floor is yours. What do you want to tell people about? If there's any upcoming projects or any social media you want them to look towards, the floor is yours.
Well, you know, you can find me on Twitter, although I haven't been so active on there at the moment through lockdown because not much is changing, you know. All I can say, guys, one thing, just keep thinking patience. We don't know how long this waiting game is going to carry on for. Just stay patient and just try and find something that can make you happy, you know? Whatever it is.
Alistair, thank you again. And thank you to listening to the Football and Feelings podcast.